Hello and welcome back to the Now We Know show, the show where we discuss a topic of interest and by the end we will have learned something new and hopefully you will too. I'm Zach.
And I'm Buzz. And it's our spectacular, spooktacular Halloween special.
Yes. So in this episode, what are we discussing? We're kind of discussing Halloween traditions.
Well, obviously we're the Now We Know show and we want to know, and the listeners want to know, all about Halloween. So we're going to take a look at what is Halloween, where does Halloween come from, what kind of traditions revolve around Halloween, all the way up to the modern Halloween that we know today, and chuck in some of those modern day Halloween traditions that we ourselves have.
And at the end, we have a very special, extra, super deluxe Let's Get Quizzical quiz. All for you.
You didn't warn me about this. Where's Jack when I need him?
If you enjoy the Now We Know show podcast, why not support Zach Wylde Productions on our Patreon page? Become an official ZWP patron for as little as £1 a month for exclusive early access to all our latest episodes, videos, behind the scenes, updates and more. Okay then, where should we start?
Well, as we usually say on the Now We Know show, we need to start at the very beginning. So, Halloween, what is it? Where is it from? Where does it originate? I suppose most people consider Halloween these days as being something where you dress up in, well, I would say scary costumes.
But nowadays they kind of become a lot less scary and more kind of fantasy.
Not just nowadays. I mean, you're in your 20s, but we used to take you trick-or-treating when you were a little kid.
Yeah, I have vague memories of that.
Right. And we'll discuss that later on, but... So 20 years ago, well, maybe not 20 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, and earlier than that, before you were born, people were still dressing up in costumes which really have very little to do with Halloween, which is interesting. So we'll talk about...
We're talking about costumes. Fun fact about this particular podcast.
We should have mentioned that earlier.
But there we go.
We're getting into the groove. We're getting into our Halloween spirit here.
We're dressed up.
Yeah, we're in our costumes, especially for you listeners, so we can feel the vibes. See,
the Halloween spirit.
As we get closer to the 31st of October and the veil between the worlds becomes thinner, we want to get in touch with those spirit beings.
So, Buzz,
Yep.
What are you dressed as?
Well, I'm dressed as my killer clown. I love the killer clown.
Generic killer clown.
It's one of my favourite costumes.
Oh, is it Killer Clown from Outer Space?
Just pretty much a killer clown, really.
Okay,
it could have been from outer space.
Maybe.
I'm game.
Oh, needs a backstory.
It needs a backstory.
Good film, by the way.
But I do like my killer clown. We'll talk about the costumes because we did do a Halloween where we went out in our costumes, didn't we?
That is true.
I think that was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah, possibly.
We'll get to that later on. And anyway, what about you, sir?
What am I? I am dressed in a green and red sweater.
There's a clue there, listeners.
I have knives on my hand. Well, my right hand.
Edward Scissorhands.
No, just the one hand. And I do... have a bespoke hat.
Your floppy brown felt hat.
Yes. I haven't gone to the extremes of burning myself severely for this one.
Nope.
But I think it's quite obvious that I am...
a little bit of you're channeling
Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street.
Very good, very good. I'm loving it. So we'll have to take some photographs and pop them up for the listeners. So
that'd be good. That'd be good, yeah.
So anyway, Halloween. Really, where does it stem from? Do you know, Zach?
No, I really have not a clue.
So really, you're a man who's grown up just understanding Halloween.
With the commercial side of Halloween.
Halloween. Well, Halloween derives from a Celtic festival. Now, if you look this festival up, it's spelled Samhain. So most people, and I have heard people pronunciate it as Samhain.
Yeah.
But it should be Samhain.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, that's interesting because obviously we did a podcast about the Halloween movies, and I'm sure that Dr. Loomis in those films, I think it's the first one, he actually refers to it as Samhain.
Right. Well, Samhain. Or Samhain.
Samhain?
I'll call it Samhain.
Fair enough. That actually sounds
Samhain,
a lot more creepy.
Yeah, well, Samhain is the M and H are pretty much silent. But it's if you, I think if you Google it, you can actually Google it and somebody will pronounce it for you and say it's Samhain. So
I prefer that. I definitely prefer
you've
that.
probably got to put a Celtic
Twist
in your accent. So Samhain. I don't know. Maybe try and channel your Welsh or Irish or Scottish.
So it's pretty old then.
Yeah. So Samhain is the festival that it's at the end of the harvest for the Celtic people.
Right.
Now, people who are listening and might not know who the Celts were. The Celts were an indigenous population across Europe and across Britain, Ireland, Scotland, and reaching out, and lots of different nominations of Celts, and they probably had their own local dialects, but one thing they had in common is a lot of their religious and ceremonial beliefs. This is a time of the Druids, etc. So what you've got is this festival, as I say. Samhain is a pagan religious festival which originates from an ancient Celtic spiritual tradition from those people all the way across Europe. In modern times, Samhain, a Gaelic word pronounced Samhain. Okay, so almost getting it right there. Samhain. Samhain. For those people, everybody listening, repeat. Zach, repeat.
Samhain.
Okay, so it's usually celebrated on the 31st of October to the 1st of November to welcome in the harvest and usher in the dark half of the year.
Right.
Okay, so you can look at these ancient folk, and they've got the spring and summer months. Spring, everything's starting to come to life. Summer, they've planted their crops, they're getting through to the harvest, and they've gotten through to the end of October. The harvest is in, and we're starting to see the winter months. Autumn is starting to take a grip. We're going to head into the dark half of the year, autumn and winter.
So when you're saying about paganism and these kind of ancient rituals, I kind of picture Stonehenge.
Yeah.
And
they would be in ancient Britons.
Yeah, but is it true that kind of rituals and things like that still occur at Stonehenge?
In modern Druids do traditional. Well, I assume if anybody's listening and you're a Druid, you can fill us in on this.
Oh, we'd love to have a Druid on the podcast.
Modern Druid religion. I also think that touches upon the modern religion of Wicca, which is both Druidic and, I believe, also connected with white witchcraft.
Please excuse me, I'm just thinking of the Wicker Man.
Okay, but if you look at the film The Wicker Man, I mean, they were again doing a festival at end of harvest.
That is true.
To make sure that their harvest was bountiful the following year.
Eerily creepy film.
It is.
It's one of Jack's favourites.
And so there you have a good example, which is tied into basically a horror movie of an ancient pagan Celtic festival taking place. Possibly, and I'd need to research the Wicker Man film to see if that is part of Samhain or not.
So I take it, obviously, with the horror aspect of such a thing of the Wicker Man, I doubt that they have human sacrifices anymore.
Well, no. And I would imagine, seeing that most of the Druidic lore back in the time of the ancient Celts would have all been handed down by word of mouth. I mean, this is a time, when the Romans came to Britain, came across Europe, in fact, and eventually ended up in Britain, for the best part, they were trying to stamp out these old religions, and I wouldn't assume that at that time, unless there are any perhaps runic carvings on stones that might record some of the things that were done, these were oral traditions handed down.
Okay. So when it comes to the movies, I think it's definite to say that they take a bit of dramatic license.
Well, I think we all know that, especially us. I mean, we work in the movies. It's about entertainment, isn't it, Zach?
True, very true.
Even though the researchers are meant to do, funnily enough, their research.
Making it more real kind of makes it that much more scary.
Yeah, if something has got realism behind it, then that does, add that little je ne sais quoi, as I say. So when it comes to the Druidic traditions, the way that the festivals were undertaken, I don't kind of know, and I wouldn't have thought that there would be any writings, because the texts from the time, for example, the Romans came to Britain and they had writing. They wrote in, obviously, Latin, and we know from evidence that Hadrian's Wall that where they actually found centurions' letters to their families back
Oh,
home. And
wow.
things. But whether the ancient Britons had any form of written
Well, it's probably
text,
mostly spoken.
I think it would have been
word.
oral traditions.
Yeah.
Although there may have been runic inscriptions, there may well be stones. I think there's one down in a place called Slaughterbridge in Cornwall near Tintagel Castle. That's called.
Yeah.
I think it's called Merlin Stone, I believe.
Isn't there one that's called Arthur's Stone around there as well?
Yeah, or maybe it is Arthur's Stone, which has runic inscriptions on it. But I don't know exactly from what period they would have come from. So,
okay.
But I would have thought most of the traditions and rituals that would have been performed these days by what I'm going to use the term modern druids.
Right.
I don't know how they actually represent what would have originally been done.
Well, I doubt it includes human sacrifice.
I don't think they've been sacrificing children, or let's be honest, I don't think they'd be sacrificing the odd bullock or whatever they
animals or anything nowadays.
So Celtic tradition is where Samhain stems from.
So this is where Halloween comes from.
Yeah, because
or has evolved from.
Yeah. So Samhain or Samhain is the Celtic tradition, which basically sees the end of the harvest and the forthcoming half of the year, or the dark half of the year. Okay.
Interesting.
So let's look at this.
I'm learning stuff.
Okay.
It's a very heavily learning stuff.
So with Samhain, after the harvest work was complete, celebrants joined with the druid priests to light a community fire using a wheel that would kind of cause friction and make what we call fire fairies, but sparking flames.
Oh, okay.
And the wheel was considered a representation of the sun and used along with druidic prayers. Yeah. Here we go, just as you mentioned. Cattle were sacrificed and participants took a flame from the communal bonfire back to their home to relight their own hearth fire.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
So actually, from my research, it does state that early texts present Samhain as a mandatory celebration lasting 3 days and 3 nights, where the community was required to show themselves to local kings and chieftains. Failure to participate was believed to result in punishment from the gods, even illness or death.
Oh, geez, okay.
Yeah.
That's very different from nowadays. Because it's usually Halloween is one night.
Yeah, and we'll get to Halloween as we progress through the ages.
Right.
So with Samhain, supposedly there was also a military aspect to the Samhain celebrations in Ireland, and it's interesting to bring up the point of Ireland, because anybody can do this, you can Google the Celtic nations and you'll see how they were spread across Europe, down to the south of France, through Germany, up towards through the Netherlands, and across to Britain, the ancient Britons, the Welsh, Scots, Pictish, and Ireland. And it's funny because while doing the research on Halloween, one of the things I found that kept coming up was this reference that Halloween and Samhain began in Ireland, that it's an Irish tradition, if you like, invention. Right. And then I was reading quite a lot about it, and it was kind of, actually, after reading it, I think there's a little bit of a twist on tourism there to try and say that the Irish were the ones that instigated it all and it comes from Ireland. But it's part of the whole of the Celtic nation's culture, Samhain.
Interesting.
So, yes, it would have come from Ireland, but only in the fact that the Irish would have taken it with them when they went off over to America with the Pilgrims, and the same with any cultures that still celebrated.
Now, I do have a question. Now, in America, I think they celebrate the Day of the Dead festival.
Certainly in South America,
is that
the Day of the Dead,
anything to do with Halloween?
I don't think it tends to be in Mexico, doesn't it?
Yeah, have I thrown a bit of a curveball with this question?
Mexico and South America, they celebrate the Day of the Dead. I'd have to look that up to find out if it has any relation to...
Well, maybe we can ask the listeners. If you know if the Day of the Dead festival has anything to do with Halloween, please get in contact, comment below, let us know. Personally,
I think it's a completely different festival. I don't even know. Maybe you can have a quick Google and find out whether or not what date that comes in on.
Yeah, maybe I can.
That would probably basically solve that one. So going back to the Irish connection, as I was mentioning earlier, there was also a military aspect to Samhain in Ireland, with holiday thrones prepared for commanders of soldiers. Anyone who committed a crime or used their weapons during the celebration faced the death sentence.
That is pretty harsh.
That is pretty harsh, really.
Fun fact, I've found out when the Day of the Dead festival is.
And?
2nd of November.
Right.
So it's quite close to Halloween.
So again, but it's...
Could it be within those supposed 3-day celebration?
Perhaps.
And spread across continents and throughout communities?
I don't know pretty much anything that much about the Day of the Dead. Well, obviously, as much as I know that the locals that celebrate the Day of the Dead, it's a time for them to... They even resurrect, if you like, their departed family members.
Well, they talk to them, don't they?
Well, they actually take them out of their tombs, out of their graves,
wow.
and take them home and dress them and prepare them a meal and all sorts of things like that with their deceased relatives.
Honestly, why don't we do this
It's a celebration of their that veil when it's thinnest between the worlds. It's obviously very close to our European Halloween date of the 31st of October.
I can imagine less candies involved.
So I presume it's an ancient tradition in South America, Mexico, places like that. But what that's built on, because obviously I'm thinking the ancient Mayans, Aztecs and things, I would imagine it would sort of come through that way, just in the same way we were talking about the Celtic religions of Europe with Samhain.
Interesting.
We should have to have a podcast on the Day of the Dead, and then we can learn all about that for ourselves as well as the listeners.
Maybe next year.
Yeah, maybe next year. So anyway, back to Samhain. So with Samhain in the Celtic religion, it was expected that ancestors might cross over during this time as well, and Celts would dress as animals and monsters so that fairies were not tempted to kidnap them.
Right, this is kind of starting to sound a bit more Halloween-y.
Okay, yeah, and so going on, some of the specific monsters, you'll like this, were associated with the mythology surrounding Samhain, including a shape-shifting creature called the Puka. Okay, the Puka.
The Puka.
The Puka is spelled P-U-K-A-H.
Right.
Puka. That receives harvest offerings from the field. The Lady Gwyn is a headless woman dressed in white who chases night wanderers and was accompanied by a black pig.
Oh, wow, this sounds awesome.
But there was also the Dullahan, who sometimes appeared as impish creatures, sometimes headless men on horses who carried their heads, riding flame-eyed horses. Their appearance was a death omen to anyone who encountered them.
Ooh. So this is sounding way more scary than what we have Halloween now.
The Dullan, there you go. Watch out for those Dullan. So they could appear...
And the Puka.
They could appear as impish creatures or headless horsemen.
Wow, I didn't expect this to tie in kind of into this kind of mythology folklore episode that we did.
And also, there's still more. A group of hunters known as the Fairy Host might also haunt Samhain and kidnap people. Similar are the Slough, S-L-U-A-G-H.
Right.
Slough.
So not Slough, but Slough.
Who would come from the west to enter houses and steal souls.
Lovely.
Now, one of the most popular Samhain stories told during the festival was of the Second Battle of Mag Tuired, which portrays the final conflict between the Celtic pantheon known as the Tuatha Del Danann and evil oppressors known as the Fomor. The myths state that the battle unfolded over the period of Samhain.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on during this Celtic festival.
It's a lot more eventful than I was really expecting.
Yes, and one of them, it would seem from my research, one of the most famous Samhain-related stories is the adventures of Nera.
Nera?
N-E-A-R. Nera.
Nera.
Okay, so the adventures of Nera, in which the hero Nera encounters a corpse of fairies and enters into the underworld.
Interesting. This is kind of sounding like Greek mythology now.
Well, yes, but that's because we are usually when you go to school, you learn about Romans, you learn about the Greek
Ancient
mythology.
Greeks. We don't really tend to learn about
we
the
watch
Celts.
we watch Jason and the Argonauts movies. We
Yeah,
watch
yeah,
all
yeah.
these things, and you know, because they were great Harryhausen movies, and there was an opportunity to resurrect, the Gorgon and
Clash of the Titans.
Clash of the Titans, and having all these different gods and things. And of course, we have in Europe a fantastic folklore of our own.
Well, just listen to the werewolf, vampire, and our Hertfordshire folklore podcasts.
Yeah, and so we're talking about the Celtic nations. So this is well before the Romans even came across and tried to take the whole of Europe, and enslave everybody as they did.
Wow.
During that period. So way back, we had all these fantastic
Crazy times.
monsters and creatures and fairies. Now, carrying on with the Celtic folklore of Samhain, Samhain figured into the adventures of the mythological Celtic hero Fionn McCarhill.
That's a mouthful.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Fionn McCarhill. When he faced the fire-breathing underworld dweller Alien.
That sounded like Alien.
It sounded like Alien, but it's spelled Aillen.
What an alien way of saying that.
Yeah, well, anyway, so he faced the fire-breathing underworld dweller Alien. Or Alien. Elon?
Elon?
I don't know.
Halloween.
Who knows? Anyway, who would burn down the hall of Tara every Samhain.
Oh dear.
So, Samhain also figures into other Fionn McCarhill legend, where the hero is sent to the land beneath the wave. As well as taking place on Samhain, it features descriptions of the hero's holiday gatherings. There you go.
Crazy.
So we've got a lot of folklore there.
There's so much folklore. I had no idea that there was this much kind of backstory to Halloween.
Exactly, and we can go back if we wanted to and research these individual folklores.
For our folklore podcast.
Folklore podcast, yeah.
Well, that'd be really
because
cool.
I'm quite fascinated about the stuff. I mean, really, we're focusing on Halloween, so we can look back in more detail at another time. So that's the Celtic celebration festival of Samhain, which is basically that juncture between the half of the year of light and half of the year of dark. End of the harvest, boom, we're going to light the fires and kindle the flame and take it into our homes, light our own fires in our hearths to start, seeing the dark half of the year in, and to communicate with the spirit world, because that's when the veil is so thin.
Oh, how mystical.
Yeah, so now we're going to move on to Samhain in the Middle Ages.
Oh, crikey, okay.
Because we've obviously done the ancient Britons,
Yeah.
Celts.
Yeah.
So now we're coming up a little bit closer to home, to the Middle Ages. So as the Middle Ages progressed, so did the celebrations of the fire festivals. Bonfires known as shenanigans.
That is brilliant. That is 100% brilliant.
Yeah, so shenanigans, which were more personal Samhain fires. So they were nearer to farmsteads and became tradition, purportedly to protect families from fairies and witches.
It's kind of like a family get-together,
Yeah,
really.
so now instead of having maybe, if you can imagine, a Celtic village or community coming together to a Samhain fire, and then all returning to their dwellings, now it's sort of progressed on to being more of a family thing. So instead of the whole village coming together or the whole community coming together to witness and partake in that druidic ritual of Samhain, now it's kind of become more of an individual family thing.
So it's kind of like a Sunday barbecue.
Oh, well, I don't know if you could say that. Because still, I don't know. I don't normally have a barbecue and try and have it to keep the fairies and witches away.
Oh, well.
So anyway,
tastes nice.
but this is where it starts to become more towards the festival we know now as Halloween.
Right, okay, so there's been a big shift.
Yeah, well, it's become more of a family thing. The belief that the veil between the worlds is thin, the spirits abound, they can come into the world of the living at this time. So this is when, in the Middle Ages, carved turnips began?
Turnips.
Turnips, because it wasn't pumpkins. Back in the day, it was carved turnips because we didn't have pumpkins.
How would that
I
even
know there
work?
was a great tradition in East Anglia of carving turnips, and if you ever try to carve a turnip, well, it's a bit hard to carve. And that's where the original name of a jack-o'-lantern came from. Is the carved turnips.
Oh wow! I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that was an American invention.
Well, no, the jack-o'-lantern went to America with the Pilgrims and all the people that followed and went to America. They took these European traditions with them.
Right.
So they would have gone over to America and taken the jack-o'-lanterns and the whole, it's Halloween, it's Samhain, we need to ward off spirits using the jack-o'-lanterns.
So how did the kind of pumpkins come into use?
Let's have a look at the jack-o'-lanterns as were. So the jack-o'-lanterns that were carved turnips were attached by strings to sticks and embedded with coal. So they shoved coal into the eyes, probably a bit like we'd associate with a
snowman.
Snowman, yeah. And later Irish traditions then switched to pumpkins.
Oh, so do they have pumpkins in Ireland?
No.
Right.
Okay, so pumpkins are native to North America and down to Mexico.
Oh, okay.
So
So could it be said that the Pilgrims, when they went over there, did they take their turnips or did they find an alternative?
well, certainly they would have taken both livestock and
Provisions?
plants with seeds in order to grow their own crops over there, because if you're going from Europe on this adventure to the Americas, you wouldn't necessarily know, especially if you're amongst the first people to go there, what you're going to come across.
Yeah.
So you're going to farm things that you are used to farming.
I mean, this was new territory,
And
wasn't it?
Exactly, it's new territory, and you're going to find things in that territory that are edible, that you can eat and make use of. And obviously pumpkins are one of those things. And of course, if you've got a choice between carving a turnip or a pumpkin,
You're going to go for the pumpkin.
And funnily enough, you say about taking things over there. Again, listeners, you can Google this. Maybe something that you can put me right on. But something's telling me that earthworms that are in America now didn't exist in America.
Oh, yeah, I think I know about that.
Until the Europeans went over there.
Yeah, because...
They took, obviously, soil with them, with plants in, and then the earthworms basically spread.
Because the earthworms in North America, they died out, they're extinct.
Exactly. So, the earthworms they have now are the descendants of Europeans.
Wow, you're really learning all about different things on this podcast.
Exactly. So anyway, so the jack-o'-lanterns were turnips, and the Irish tradition that went over to America then started to turn those jack-o'-lanterns from the turnips to the now we know as probably the most iconic Halloween image.
Well, that's pretty much it. Yeah. If you think of Halloween, what immediately springs to mind? It's a pumpkin, an orange carved pumpkin.
Exactly. So, again, going back to the research, in Wales, this is interesting. So we had the Irish, and they are carving the jack-o'-lanterns and then using eventually the pumpkins. Switching to the pumpkin, should I say. In Wales, men tossed burning wood at each other in violent games and set off fireworks.
Now that sounds like my type of thing.
And in northern England, men paraded with noisemakers.
So, Buzz, what is a noisemaker?
Well, that's a good question, Zach. So I would imagine there are kind of things like rattles, like you would associate with Morris men and mummers.
Well, don't they have like a bladder or something on the end of a
bladder
stick?
on a stick. That's what the Fall uses to hit people on the head with. But when I was a wee nipper at school, not traditional, I know, but they used to collect all the metal bottle tops off of
cans and things.
Well, not of cans, but because we didn't have cans when I was a kid. Well, we might have had cans, but predominantly we had glass bottles of.
Oh no, I see what you mean.
So just like have a bottle of beer. If we had something which my dear old father used to call a bottle of fizzy pop, you'd take the cap off, and then back at school, one of our teachers who used to teach us how to do the May Day Morris dancing and the
Maypole
dancing, he used to nail lots of these bottle caps. So you get one nail with probably about 4 or 5 bottle caps the nail would go through them and nail that into a stick. And that stick, the top of it would be covered in those, so you could rattle them.
I kind of want to make one of these noisemakers.
Yeah. But also, I would say, do you understand when I say the old noisemaker rattle that they used to have at football matches? It's the one you hold the handle and you swing it.
The big kind of...
it goes clack, 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 clack. It's got like
like a big rattle.
a big rattle, yeah.
Yeah,
That may well be what they mean by a noisemaker.
I'm sure there used to be old police versions of those.
I think you're thinking of that steampunk image of the policeman with one on his helmet, top of his helmet. He has to rotate his head round to...
Talking of steampunk, we will have to do a steampunk podcast.
So here we are. They've got the men from the north parading around with their noisemakers. And then we come on to the tradition. Now, this is a tradition that I wasn't aware of to do with Halloween or Samhain, because I'm believing that now, perhaps at this period we're talking about, was probably coming out of the Samhain and in towards what we now know as Halloween. But there was a thing called Dumb Supper.
This sounds intriguing.
Dumb Supper. That's D-U-M-B, as in dumb. Now, the tradition of Dumb Supper began during the Middle Ages, in which food was consumed by celebrants, but only after inviting ancestors to join in, giving the families a chance to interact with the spirits until they left following dinner.
Oh.
There we go. Children would play games to entertain the dead, while adults would update the dead on the past year's news. That night, doors and windows might be left open for the dead to come in and eat cakes that had been left out for them.
Why don't we do stuff like this nowadays?
So that's giving me the impression that actually people weren't afraid of the dead.
Yeah, it was a family thing.
What strikes me so far from what we've discussed is that people were more concerned about the Halloween monsters.
Yeah.
The fairy folk.
The demons and things.
Yeah, they were what and chose to try and ward off
and appease
them. But at the same time, were more than happy to invite their dead ancestors into their homes.
Yeah.
In a joyous way.
Yeah, I think that's really fantastic. Because nowadays, you kind of think ghosts and ghouls and things that are like a poltergeist, or for instance, are scary.
Yeah, something that is there to terrorise.
Yeah, to terrorise, to scare. But,
yeah.
I really like that idea that you kind of welcome in the spirits of the dead.
So people these days, they kind of, especially if you're watching these TV programs about ghost hunting, they like to make a big thing about something that's just been slung across the room.
Like paranormal activity or something.
And they kind of make it out that these are disturbed spirits or spirits that... are violent or something. But we're talking about a time when literally every house opened its doors and windows to invite those spirits in. And
what a brilliant idea.
To share their time with them. They weren't scary. They were their ancient family spirits.
It was more of a celebration.
Exactly. So, yeah.
Oh, I much prefer that. Why don't we do stuff like that nowadays?
Well, celebrate the dead. That takes us back to the Day of the Dead in South America.
How is a society if we become so boring?
Well, I'm not going to lay this particular one at the doorstep of Christianity, but moving on, Christian Samhain. Okay.
Oh, okay.
So as Christianity gained a foothold in the pagan communities, church leaders attempted to reframe Samhain as a Christian celebration.
Oh, so just like they moved Christmas.
Yeah. I mean, Christmas, Saturnalia, Winterfest. The Christian religion is taking off, it's taking over, and I believe that a lot of the time when it came to Christian religion, they would enter a community, their missionaries would go into a community, and if that community is celebrating old ways, they would try not to immediately turn those old ways off, but to try and slowly
manipulate,
change it.
The subtle approach.
Subtly change it towards Christianity. Now, I've got down here on my research that the first attempt was by Pope Boniface in the 5th century.
Now that's a name.
Boniface, yes. He moved the celebration to May the 13th and specified it was a day celebrating saints and martyrs.
So instead of Halloween.
Instead of Halloween and its fire festivals, it was moved to May the 13th to celebrate saints and martyrs.
Why?
Well, to try and get away from that ancient Celtic Samhain.
So that's even more interesting, because obviously it's moved back to where it kind of originally was, I assume, in October.
Oh, now, yes. Yeah. Not when Boniface was in charge, no.
So that's interesting. I wonder how that really developed.
Well, so let's look at it. So, although Pope Boniface of the 5th century tried moving it to May the 13th, the fire festivals of October and November, however, did not end because of his decree. People obviously were I'm not changing my fire festival to the 13th of May. Are you having a laugh?
It's outrageous.
It's outrageous.
It's absurd.
I want my fire
Festival.
Exactly. So that obviously didn't work. In the 9th century, Pope Gregory moved the celebration back to the time of the fire festivals. So obviously, Pope Boniface did do his best.
For a time.
People didn't take it up. And eventually, Pope Gregory just said...
he met consumer resistance.
Yes. It wasn't on brand. It wasn't on brand, as Jack would say. So Pope Gregory moved the celebration back to the time of the fire festivals, but declared it All Saints' Day.
Right.
And All Saints' Day is on November the 1st.
Okay, so Halloween on the 31st, November the 1st, All Saints' Day.
And followed by All Souls' Day, which would be on November the 2nd.
Which is also the Day of the Dead festival.
There you go. Whether that's...
If there's any connection, it just seems to be that they're set on the same day.
Well, there may well be. I mean, obviously, again, this is something we'll have to research in a different podcast, but obviously we know that the Spanish, which were Catholics, went over to South America, caused a huge amount of problems over there. Perhaps the religion sort of stuck.
Yeah, took over,
and that's where it comes from.
Interesting.
Sort of mixed.
Very interesting.
So anyway, this is when Samhain merges with Halloween. So
okay.
Neither new holiday did away with the pagan aspects of the celebration, you see. October the 31st became known as All Hallows Eve because it was the eve of All Saints' Day, or All Holy. It was the All Holy Eve, the eve of the Saints' Day. And All Hallows Eve became known as Halloween. So it comes from Hallows Eve.
Blimey.
Okay. And it contained much of the traditional pagan practices before being adopted in 19th century America through Irish immigrants bringing their traditions across the ocean. So that's really the good old Irish did take their Celtic traditions of Halloween over to America.
And found pumpkins.
There you go, found pumpkins. And this is bringing us on to what we now know as trick-or-treating. At this point, I've got to say, my childhood, I mean, I was born in the 60s, but my main childhood I was growing up in the 70s, and I knew nothing of trick-or-treating. We didn't, in the UK, or certainly where I lived in England, we didn't do trick-or-treating. Never, ever.
Really?
Never heard of it.
Oh.
It just wasn't a thing that we did.
I would have thought that's something that's been around for a while.
Well, certainly it's something that has stemmed from America. So this is where the research is going, you see, because our good old Irish immigrants going over to America, taking their traditions with them, this is where trick-or-treating stems from. It's said to have been derived from an ancient Irish and Scottish, funnily enough, practice in the nights leading up to Samhain. In Ireland, mumming, as we mentioned, the mummers, because they used to dress up.
Okay.
I think there's mummers that dress up all over the place throughout the UK. Some of them put wicker heads on, and
oh yeah, they look fantastic.
Have you seen those wicker heads?
Yeah, I have.
Where they're like horses' heads and all sorts. They're brilliant. So you get the mummers dressing up, and possibly, partially, you mentioned about the bladder on a stick.
Well, anyway. my only reference for that was from the Doctor Who episode The Demons.
Oh right. Oh yeah, but that was something that we, when I was a kid, and we learnt from good old Mr. Hedger how to do all the country dancing, and doing the maypole dancing and the...
So was that a teacher?
Yeah, Mr. Hedger was the deputy head teacher of my primary school.
Oh, wow.
Green Hills School in Hemel Hempstead, those places. He was a lovely old man. He used to teach us how to make lead soldiers.
That's really cool.
He used to do all sorts of wonderful things.
We don't do anything like that nowadays.
So we learnt the dances, and it's where I used to really enjoy doing the Morris dancing. Yeah, because the Morris dancing, where you clack the sticks together, it was quite an energetic,
a fun and therapeutic
kind of dance, smashing the sticks together. And of course, with Morris dancing, later on now, so many years later, having taught swordsmanship for over 20 years. Doing martial arts for over 40 years, but actually being a martial arts instructor, qualified instructor for 20 years, and teaching swordsmanship, my research going back years, you suddenly realise, which not everybody realises, but the folk that were doing the Morris dancing were your country farmers, labourers, your blacksmiths, all these country folk, big burly blokes. And they were doing it at a time when people carried swords, and a lot of the time those dances are from sword dances where they were using the swords, and some of the Morris dancing still use swords, and they would make a star interweaving the swords.
Now that again, it takes me back to the Wicker Man. Isn't there a scene in the Wicker Man where they have the crossed swords?
Yes.
And then they end up cutting off one of the
spoilers,
wicker heads.
Yeah. So
somebody.
But they were based and all these people that were doing the dances knew how to use these weapons as actual fighting weapons.
Well, yeah,
and
it was just the standard thing.
And of course, we had the ancient country sport of backswording, which is
of course,
which we all know, but that takes its name from the English single-handed backsword.
Maybe.
We'll do another podcast about that. But the point
Yes.
I'm making is that from being a kid and clacking those sticks together, which would have been pseudo swords, if you like. Probably why I enjoyed it so much. Yeah, because you're dancing around and clacking swords. But anyway,
that's where it comes from then. It's probably sword enthusiasm.
Yeah, sword enthusiasm. And hitting people with sticks. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or wooden wasters.
I think we can both associate to that.
Yeah, so trick-or-treating, getting that... Well, I didn't know anything about trick-or-treating as a kid. It wasn't something we did here. But going back to where trick-or-treating kind of derives from, in Ireland, mumming, as we were just talking about, was the practice of putting on costumes and going door to door and singing songs to the dead, and cakes and treats were given as payment to the mummers.
Oh, wow.
But Halloween pranks also have a tradition in Samhain. Through the ancient celebrations, tricks were typically blamed on fairies, you see.
Oh, okay, so that's where the terminology, the trick-or-treat, comes from.
Possibly, yes, because it progressed into people playing tricks on people for fun.
Right.
Knocking over buckets, I don't know, doing things, and then people would blame it on the fairies. And also, obviously, they're handing out treats to the mummers. So the mummers were probably doing, if they didn't get their treats,
they'd play
tricks.
Oh, that's
on the
so
locals
cool.
as they were dancing around.
Nowadays, it's very much that trick or treat is just what you say, and then you get given sweets and candy.
Trick or treat.
Like, I wonder,
either get candy or you get a toilet roll thrown in your house,
or nobody appears to the door.
Yeah.
Now that's really interesting, because I wonder if there's any kind of comprehension in the kind of the public consciousness that they actually understand what that actually means.
No, I don't think it does. I think people just feel, especially these days, parents, the modern, we'll try and just brush over this and we'll come back to it, but most modern day parents of kids just think, right, dress them up as a spaceman. Well, that's got to do with Halloween, I don't know. And knock on people's doors and say trick or treat, and they'll get sweets.
Is it kind of like a social compulsion to kind of engage and do stuff like that?
I don't know, but the kids and the parents, obviously the parents, the guardians that are looking after the children to make sure they're safe, would have originally been bands of mummers dancing around to each house, getting treats from the house, singing songs, laughing, probably hitting the householders on the head with a bladder on a stick, playing naughty tricks on them, whatever those sorts of tricks would have been back in the day.
That's interesting, because you're talking about these mummers, and they're actually grown-ups.
Yeah, the grown-ups. Oh, I mean, I would have thought there were probably youngsters with them as well, but it would probably be, I'm imagining it would be the opposite way. The young children would have been standing at the door watching them.
Yeah, watching a performance.
And the youngsters would have, the maybe, the people, the adults of the house would be giving the mummers some cakes.
Yeah, so it's kind of like this door-to-door kind of
Very much,
performance.
Yeah, like Christmas carols, if you like. In
Yeah,
a way, you have a Christmas choir go door to door.
I guess so. Kind of
But yeah, so
seasonal
they were
type
doing
thing.
around, and they were causing mayhem and chaos, as well as getting treats as well. So there you go. So trick or treating has started to develop from that kind of thing. Now, I did mention Wicca before. So Wicca and Samhain. A broad revival of Samhain, resembling its traditional pagan form, began in the 1980s. Not that long ago.
Okay.
With the growing popularity of Wicca. Wicca celebrations of Samhain take on many forms, from the traditional fire ceremonies to celebrations that embrace many aspects of modern Halloween, as well as activities related to honouring nature and the ancestors. So, like you mentioned about going to Stonehenge and having ceremonies.
Right, so is this the Druids again?
Yeah. So this is modern Wicca. I think a lot of people associate Wicca with witchcraft, but I've spoken to people about that, and a lot of them would classify themselves as white witches.
Oh, okay.
That really it's all a case of herbalism.
Well, we did say
nature.
something. We did say something about having a kind of a witch-based podcast, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, and we probably will.
Interview with a witch.
Yeah. So Wiccans look at Samhain as the passing of the year and incorporate common Wiccan traditions into their celebration. In the Druid tradition, Samhain celebrates the dead with a festival on October the 31st and usually features a bonfire and communion with the dead. It says in my research, that American pagans often hold music and dance celebrations called witches' balls in proximity to Samhain. But not being from America, I don't know if that's exactly how it works. So if you're listening and you're in America, can you tell us all about witches' balls?
Careful if you say that.
Well, as in dances, get-togethers.
I mean, there can be men witches nowadays.
Right, so this leads us on to fascinating information. Are you enjoying this, Zach?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, go. So, fascinating stuff about Halloween brings on to Celtic Reconstructionists.
Okay.
Pagans who embrace Celtic traditions with the intent of reintroducing them faithfully into modern paganism are called Celtic Reconstructionists. In this tradition, Samhain is called Och Shamna,
That's a lot harder to say.
or Oish Shamna.
I think it's better if you say it fast.
Oish Shamna.
Shabba-
Okay. I could spell it out, but let's go for that. So anyway, that celebration celebrates the mating between Tautha di Danann, gods Dandar and river Unis.
I'll take your word for that.
Okay. Celtic Reconstructionists celebrate by placing juniper decorations around their homes and creating an altar for the dead, where a feast is held in honour of deceased loved ones.
So juniper's a type of flower, isn't it?
A juniper, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Juniper.
Is that a song?
It's a song.
Okay. I don't know that much about songs.
So there we are. We have now gone through all the ages, from the Celts celebrating Samhain,
The Middle Ages.
through the Middle Ages, introduction of Christianity, All Saints' Day. Obviously, we have All Hallows' Eve, becomes Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
It's a festival of fire, a festival of inviting the dead in, protecting yourselves from those naughty fairy folk, etc. And, well, basically trying to fend off the rampaging mummers that are going around kicking over your water button, nicking all your cakes, and where we get trick or treat from, pretty much. Now that brings us
To our modern day
celebration of Halloween. So here we have Halloween, and for me, probably the best place to start is talking about my experience from being a kid, because I'm in my late 50s, and as I said before, we'd never had trick or treat. It wasn't a thing, but we did celebrate Halloween. And I was talking to my dear mother, who's in her 80s, and about her recollections. Now, certainly through the Second World War, they had no celebrations, because she said, and it's quite obvious really, you weren't allowed to have any bonfires, etc., because obviously
I mean, it's
air
during the
raids
war, yeah.
during the war. So her childhood she has no recollection of any kind of Halloween celebrations at all. And then after the war, things were still rationed, etc., etc. And she feels that it was probably started to be introduced from the American soldiers that came over.
Right,
because
okay.
they were coming over from America.
So is it kind of that kind of almost Americanization of Halloween?
They brought sweets and things with them.
Okay, that's interesting.
As we get out of the 50s and into the 60s and prosperity's coming back to things, then people started to celebrate far more indulgently in different traditional celebrations. And if you listen to this in the UK, of course, a very traditional celebration this time of the year in the UK is Guy Fawkes Night, which was a big one for me when I was a kid. I probably look forward to Guy Fawkes far more than Halloween, and that's when we have obviously the fireworks and everything else.
Yeah.
And it was we didn't have back in the 70s. You kind of had I do have the recollection of the odd maybe the local football club or something having a bonfire and having some fireworks, but you didn't really have public displays of fireworks.
Yeah.
And as a kid, we used to make a guy. So that was the thing. It was called. Have you heard the term "a penny for the guy"?
Kind of vaguely.
Yeah, but that was a tradition that we always did. Look forward to it. I'm skipping past Halloween briefly.
That's really interesting.
Because this is November the 5th, so it's very short.
From my memory, I'm inclined to kind of agree with you. I can far much more remember Guy Fawkes Night and all those celebrations that we used to go down the village, watch the fireworks, make guys. Does anyone do that anymore?
I don't really know.
Whereas Halloween was much more kiddified.
Yeah. Now that's the interesting thing, because when we did Guy Fawkes, it was a real family thing and community-wise, because a lot of where we lived on this estate, all the gardens backed onto each other, so everybody was having like individual bonfires, but there were wire fences, so you could see everybody else. And my dad used to scrape together some money for the fireworks, and we had fireworks, and of course you enjoyed everybody else's fireworks, and everybody was having a bonfire, and you cooked baked potatoes in the embers of the fire as the fire died down after you've had all your fireworks celebrations. And they were really cold nights on the 5th, where it was always freezing cold, but magical. And the fireworks back then, you would have loved them, Zach, because back then you could have firecrackers like they have in places like South America, still, where you get these big reams of firecrackers, you light them and then bam, 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 bam.
Yeah, just explode on the floor in front of you. They've so toned down fireworks nowadays.
And you hear, again, it's referenced in not only American movies, but American TV shows. They always talk about cherry bombs.
Yeah, I mean, there's a song called Cherry Bomb, isn't there?
It's like a mini little grenade firecracker.
That sounds awesome.
And we used to have things called bangers, which literally, with a packet of 10 bangers, you lit them and threw it, and then it just exploded. Boom! There wasn't
brilliant.
There wasn't sparkles or anything. It was just a bang.
No, this bangers. Is obviously. Yeah,
but let me finish on this, because you're gonna love this. They used to have these. Do you know what Roman candle is? Well,
I've heard of it.
Roman candle is this thing that you light it and it puts out a coloured flame.
Oh, is that the one that go?
And then it fires a ball out, and then changes colour, and then it fires another ball out. Well, they used to have the same things, but they had a plastic handle on. So as kids, and I remember being a kid, probably about 6 years old, and you had this firework
rocket launcher
in your hand with a plastic handle on it. You held it, and you just literally held your arm up in the air, and you could just like. And they had ones called traffic lights, which it was almost like a flare gun, and it just had this 6-inch flame coming out of it that would change colour, called a traffic light.
Of
course, all those things, because of people having accidents with fireworks, have all been banned. We don't have them anymore in the UK.
Honestly, where was I at this point?
In fact, we've got to a stage now where most people want to ban
fireworks.
Well, they want to ban people from buying fireworks for home celebrations, so you can only go to public displays, and they also want to ban noisy fireworks and only have no noise fireworks.
Oh, isn't that the new thing they want to do, like LED drones and things
instead of fireworks? Yeah, which they look fantastic, but kind of takes the fun out of it.
I like the bangs.
Yeah, that's a discussion for another day, because there's a lot of people that don't. Anyhow, so this big festival of fire comes just a few days after Halloween. We didn't have a Halloween bonfire. Now, we've discussed Samhain being a
And the
fire
fire
festival.
Yeah.
But in the UK, I have never associated Halloween
With a fire.
with a fire, with going out and getting a bonfire going. Perhaps it's because it became replaced
With the kind of American stuff.
Well, no, I'm just saying it probably got replaced with Guy Fawkes Night.
Yeah, that's understandable.
And people celebrating Guy Fawkes Night and the Gunpowder Plot more than Halloween. But as a child, my parents always used to have a Halloween party.
That sounds like cool.
So they probably introduced that probably in the early 70s. So talking about our own personal Halloween traditions, my dad used to put this garden netting over the ceilings in the lounge and in the dining room, and put plastic snakes and spiders and things hanging up in that netting.
Oh, wow.
Changed the light bulbs to red light bulbs, as I've mentioned in other podcasts.
Oh, that's really cool.
And we'd invite friends round, and we always used to have this thing where all the lights were turned off in the house. And you used to dress up and try and be as secretive as you could to get into the lounge in the dark. And the guests would arrive and be ushered into the lounge in the dark.
Quietly.
Yeah, quietly, but you could hear all the scuffling going on and people laughing and sort of bumping into each other.
Okay.
And you'd all get ready, and then the light, which was obviously red, but the light would be switched on, and then suddenly everybody would be revealed in their Halloween costumes.
Party time.
Party time. And talking about party time, that's when all the foods we had in our previous podcast on Halloween, we were drinking bat's blood.
Yep.
Which was cherryade, basically, which we used to just call that bat's blood, and give names to all the party food. So you had like the cheesy stick things that you get from the bakers, which are like a crunchy cheese stick.
Yeah, a cheese twist.
Cheese twist type thing, yeah. That'd be ogre's fingers. And I always remember...
Troll's toes.
So you could call things anything you like. My mother, bless her, she always used to get hard-boiled eggs, cut those in half, put half of it on a plate, and then put the other half on top of it, and put food colouring dots on it to make toadstools.
Now, we've done that before, haven't we?
Yeah, we have done that. So you have all these egg toadstools. I reckon the kids these days, they wouldn't even touch them. They'd probably just want to go for the
candy.
The candy and the cupcakes.
Well, that's the thing.
But yeah, so we had these Halloween celebrations. But, and this is the but, being in the UK, no trick-or-treat.
So that came much later.
Much later. Trick-or-treat in the 70s, never heard of it.
So I wonder when that actually came in.
I reckon that trick-or-treat came in, and this is my own personal view of when trick-or-treat came in, and it may well have obviously come in throughout the UK in different areas at different times.
It obviously got popularised.
But I think that's what it was. It was probably popularised by, as we were going through the 70s, and you get colour television, more imported TV programmes, especially ones from America.
Yeah.
And those American ones start showing films or
Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Yeah, so 1978, Halloween, you got all the kids trick-or-treating.
Yeah, that is very true.
And so you're starting to see this and going, oh,
we should do this. This looks quite fun.
There was another Halloween, not Halloween as in Michael Myers' Halloween movie, but another movie that was a staple to watch around Halloween, which was called Trick or Treat. Do you remember that one? I think we watched that not so long ago, which had the rock star.
Oh, yeah, because I think there's a more modern film called Trick or Treat, which has another guy in it.
Yeah, he's like a rock star who puts his spirit into a
record.
Into a vinyl record.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. But again, Trick or Treat is the name of the movie. So you're getting all these influences coming in from America. And, of course, as parents, you're growing up, this is now in the late 90s.
Yeah.
And all the other parents are getting involved in Trick or Treat. And you think, let's do this with, you want to do it.
Yeah, because that's when I got involved, basically as a young kid.
I'm going to hand it over to you for your memories of your Halloween traditions.
I mean, personally, I can really only remember the fact that I dressed up in different costumes.
Well, tell us about the costumes.
Costume-wise, I dressed up as an alien.
You did.
From a xenomorph.
Oh, I made that costume.
You made that costume.
I was very proud of that costume.
It's a really awesome costume.
I think I've still got it in the attic.
Yeah, it's unfortunate it doesn't really fit.
No, I think you were 6.
Yeah, I've tried to fit in it since, but I don't think it'll work.
24 you're going to fit.
Maybe we'll have to do an updated version.
Yeah. So anyway, you were a xenomorph.
Xenomorph?
That was up in Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's the thing that we did. Normally you'd think that trick-or-treaters would go around the local area.
Yep.
I think what we did differently was the fact that we kind of jumped around a bit.
Yeah, we kept going to different areas. Cause
we've been to Lincolnshire.
Yeah, now, interestingly enough, while you're talking about the Lincolnshire one, when we went to Lincolnshire, they still weren't doing trick-or-treating.
No, they had kind of like a community party, didn't they?
Had a party, but they didn't have trick-or-treaters in the way... Yeah, the kids weren't going around the houses. Even at the late 90s, early 2000s, it wasn't something in that local village.
Well, I mean, they had a costume kind of competition at one point that I won.
Yes, that's right.
I was dressed as a Viking.
Yeah, you did. Yeah,
I was so little that time.
Yeah, you were. So there you go.
I've also been a predator.
You've been a predator. That's it.
My specially adapted costume.
Well, that's the thing, because you used to do gymnastics, and obviously you ended up competing at national level in gymnastics. But while you were training, that meant we kept moving to different training places.
Yeah, very much so.
And when we were training and it happened to fall on Halloween, we'd take the costumes with us.
Yeah, I'd go to gymnastics, and then after gymnastics, we'd then go trick-or-treating in the local area.
And sometimes you used to get tons of candy.
Yeah.
Candy.
I can remember that one time, wasn't I dressed as the Predator?
You were dressed as a predator.
Oh, yeah.
I was so pleased to get that predator costume for you.
But that's the weird thing. I would always go for the kind of scary things that obviously no other kid has actually seen. Like Alien. I would have seen Alien by that point, and Predator, but nobody else would really know what it was.
Yeah, it's funny because they used to sell, was it Kenner toys?
Yeah, Aliens
so
and Predators.
You used to go into Toys R Us and they had a whole bank of Alien toys from the Alien movies.
Well, don't you remember that time you got me that die-cast sandcrawler from Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
You got me the laser shot Predator with missile launcher and the laser.
That's right.
The blue one.
It's a blue and gold one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you still got that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, those creatures in Toys R Us, none of the kids at that age should have been seeing the movies because they were like 18-rated movies. So you kind of wonder, why are they selling these toys? Probably for the dads, but there you go. But yeah, you used to have great fun doing Trick or Treat.
Yeah, that does actually, because we were talking about how nobody ever really understood what I was dressed as. That takes me back to a Scouts party. There was a Halloween party at the local Scout hut. And I was dressed as a Predator, and nobody had any clue of what I was.
What the hell you were meant to be?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm a Predator. I'm a Predator.
What is it?
How do you not know what Predator is? Have you not seen Predator?
Did you have people dressed up as fairies and cowboys?
Yes.
Yeah, see, that's the part of Halloween I don't understand. The kids dress up as things like a pretty fairy or a spaceman or a cowboy.
Yeah, it's kind of lost that kind of meaning with the dressing up as trying to be scary.
Well, yeah, and I suppose that's the thing. Modern Halloween traditions have now gone to being, it's a costume party.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you dress up as. So, granted, a lot of people do like to keep the theme of horror, but also it's now become more of a tradition for most people to watch a Halloween movie at Halloween.
Now, that's what we do nowadays.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do, because, I mean, I don't know the last time anybody had a Halloween party that we know.
Well, the last time we actually dressed up for Halloween was last year.
Well, we're dressed up at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, because we're doing a podcast.
Yeah, so the last time we dressed up for Halloween was last year, and we went to see Nightmare on Elm Street at the cinema.
We went to the cinema, Nightmare on Elm Street. Again, my favourite killer clown outfit.
Again, I was dressed up as Freddy Krueger.
And Jack was dressed up as...
I think...
Jason Voorhees, wasn't he? Yeah. Jason Voorhees. And that's always good to dress up.
Year before, I was a werewolf.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Choice. Sweet. So, yeah, but that's the modern tradition now. So the kids, trick or treat. Adults, if they're not having a party, watch a horror movie.
Yes. I'm just trying to think of what horror movies have we watched. I remember...
That was probably you should say, what horror movies haven't we watched?
Well, in relation to Halloween, I'm sure that I've watched the Evil Dead films in like a marathon.
You've just brought back a memory.
Really?
You did, because I remember as probably about the same... I don't know the year the Evil Dead came out, but I must have been around your age or a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. And back in those days, those movies, when they came out in the UK, they didn't get a cinema release.
Oh, no.
They were video nasties, and most of them were banned.
Yeah. But
you could go to your local video store, and if you were lucky, under the counter, they'd have these movies. And I remember it was Halloween, and I managed to get The Evil Dead.
Oh, wow.
And it must have literally just come out on VHS. Didn't know anything about it. Took it to my friend's house. She lived in a 3-story Victorian house. And you went up these stone steps in through the front door and into her lounge. But because it was a Victorian house and you went up the steps, underneath the house was the cellar.
Right.
Now, you got to try and imagine this, because I kid you not, we put the old video cassette in the VCR, as it used to do, start playing. We're watching The Evil Dead, and of course it gets to the bit where they've chucked the person down the cellar.
Yeah.
And it's like, let me out, and the chain's on there. The cellar door was right in front of the television.
Oh, no way.
And you could just see everybody's legs were coming up onto their chairs and going, I'm not going near that. Nope.
No, thank you.
No, thank you at all. No.
Oh,
It
wow.
was classic. It couldn't have been a better way to watch The Evil Dead for the first time.
Oh.
Having this cellar door just sitting there in front of the television and just waiting for it to go boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, because personally I really like to marathon the Evil Dead films. That's Evil Dead, the original, obviously, Evil Dead 2, Death by Dawn, and of course Army of Darkness.
The extended version.
Is there an extended version?
Well, yeah, because I remember there's different endings.
Yeah, I know there's an alternate ending.
There's an ending in the shopping mall.
Yeah, and then there's the
an
ending
where he gets out the cave.
And he sleeps too long and he's in a post-apocalyptic
world. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously we've had the new remake.
The remake, which is kind of a blend of the first two, is it?
Yeah, but it also kind of works as a sequel. Ish.
I actually recall, I haven't seen it for a long time.
It's got a lot of references.
I don't think it was a bad movie.
They kind of go for that more...
The Ash character is a lady in that, isn't she? Yeah, they switched to
Yeah, but they don't have Ash in it.
No, Ash is not in it, but what I'm saying is the character of Ash who wins through, if you like.
Yeah, they kind of switch it about a bit, yeah.
That's a good movie. Anyhow, so now we've come all the way through the centuries and our modern Samhain. There's no bonfires. The kids go around overdose on sweets while all the adults are watching either the latest horror films or classic horror films. Behind closed doors, and nobody opens the windows to let the dead in.
So that brings us to our Halloween-themed quiz.
Ah, right. Okay.
Let's get quizzical, Halloween style.
Right. Okay, over to you, Jack. No, Jack's not here. Damn,
Yep.
I'm just by myself.
I'm going to be asking the questions.
You're the quiz master.
So let's see how much about Halloween you really remember.
Oh dear.
So,
I'm going to make a complete arse of myself.
We've got a few questions here. That's 25 questions.
25. Okay, listeners, are you going to jump in here and give me a hand? I hope.
Please play along at home.
Yeah, do listen to this. Okay, 25 questions.
I will go through each question and then I will reveal the answer.
After each question?
Yes.
Okay, I'm ready.
Question 1.
Question 1.
Where is Transylvania?
In the Carpathian Mountains.
Be a bit broader.
I'm
looking for a country.
Transylvania is in... Oh, why am I... a lot of things over there. I used to think of Yugoslavia, but Yugoslavia changed.
I'm sure we covered this in the Vampire podcast.
Yeah. Oh, I can't think of which country Transylvania's in.
10-second warning. 10, 9.
I can hear
8,
the listeners are screaming.
7, 6, 5, 4.
Slovenia.
Nope.
Oh.
Okay. Romania.
Idiot.
Question 2.
I was close.
Question 2. What is a group of witches called?
Coven.
Ting!
Ta-da! Maybe I should give those people at home just a moment to answer before I do.
You'll have to keep score.
Okay, I've got one.
That's 1. Okay. What does the Scottish word guising mean?
Guising? Okay, the Scottish word guising. Dressing up.
It comes from the word disguising, getting dressed up in costumes and going trick-or-treating.
I get a point.
Yep.
Ding!
Question 4. What do you call a fear of Halloween?
A fear of Halloween has got to be like a phobia. I don't know, halophobia?
Almost.
Wienerphobia.
Go with your gut feeling. You've said it several times during this podcast.
Halloweenophobia. I've said it.
You've said the word.
I don't know.
No, give up.
I give up.
Samhainophobia.
Oh, was it that? Samhain? It's not Samhain, it's Samhain.
Well, I can remember. I read it as Samhain.
So I wasn't going to say that because I think most people wouldn't use that word.
Okay.
I think wienerphobia is much better.
Question 5. What vegetable was carved from before pumpkins were used?
Turnips.
Correct.
Yay.
Question 6. What does the Old English word hallow mean?
All Hallows Eve is holy.
Saint.
Saint's Eve. Okay, hello, saint. Okay, fair enough.
Question 7.
No point for me there then.
Question 7. What do pumpkins grow on?
The ground. Vines.
Correct.
There you go. Well, it's on a vine, but it's on the ground. You see? It's unlike a tree. So I got that point, did
Yep, you got vines. Yep.
I? Okay.
Question 8. What is the day after Halloween called?
All Saints Day.
Nope. All Souls Day.
Not sure about that. We'll have to check that. But if that's what you got on your quiz.
That's what I got on the quiz. Question 9. In what country was the first written account of children using the phrase trick or treat on Halloween?
I'm going to say Ireland.
Incorrect.
Oh.
Canada in 1927.
Okay. Okay then.
Question 10. What was the most popular Halloween costume for adults as of 2015?
Scream.
A witch.
Oh. Okay. I'm not doing too well. I only got 4 points so far.
Question 11. Name the 3 witches in Hocus Pocus.
Oh, no.
We saw this the other day.
I watched it the other day.
This was I selected this question.
Oh, no.
Just to test you.
Oh, no. It was the What's It Sisters.
I'm looking for 3 names.
Oh,
Go on, you can get one. You can get one.
oh, no. I'm just trying to think what the sisters as a group collective are called. The What's It Sisters. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I'm let myself down here.
No.
No. What were they?
Maybe if I say one, then the other 2 might.
Okay.
Winifred.
Winifred. Nope.
Sarah.
Oh, okay.
And Mary.
No. And they were the What's It Sisters?
They were the 3 sisters.
Yeah, but what were their surnames?
I don't know. It's
You
not...
haven't got it down.
I haven't got it down, okay? I've only seen the film once.
You do realise right now the listeners are screaming at you. They were the sisters.
Question 12.
I've only got 4 points. What's going on?
How many pumpkins are estimated to be bought each year for Halloween in the UK? You've got an option on this one.
This is a choice.
17 million, 5 million, 48 million, or 25 million?
I reckon a lot. 48 million. No, that's too many. What were the answers again?
17 million.
That's too low.
5 million.
Too low.
48 million.
That's the one I went for.
Or 25
No, it's going to
million.
be 25 million.
Final answer?
Yes.
17 million.
Really?
Yep.
I would have thought it would have been more.
Okay. Question 13. Unlucky for some. What is the best-selling horror movie?
The Omen.
Nope.
Oh, no. Hang on a minute. Exorcist.
Nope.
Oh.
It.
Really?
Yeah.
That's the best selling of all time.
It would seem so. Question 14. Which of the following cannot be used to kill a vampire?
Okay. Was I paying attention to Sarah or not?
A wooden stake.
Mm-hmm.
Silver bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Sunlight. Or a golden axe?
Traditionally, or is this some movie tropes?
It's just a question.
Okay. Well, I reckon it's going to be silver bullet.
You sure?
No. Well, in the movies, it's sunlight, but I was going to go for sunlight, but I don't know whether you're asking me movie questions or traditional
It's
questions.
just in general.
Okay. Sunlight.
Ready?
Well, what the hell's a golden axe got to do with anything?
What's your final answer?
A golden axe?
Correct.
Oh, who put that in there? Somebody's trick-or-treating me. I've got 5.
You got 5 out of 14.
Oh, dear.
Question 15.
Okay.
Who does apple bobbing originate from?
Who? Not what. It's who does apple bobbing. Okay. Who does apple bobbing? That was one thing we used to do, actually. Halloween. No, actually, to be fair, I don't think we did Halloween apple bobbing. We used to do apple bobbing on bonfire night.
Yeah.
Or Guy Fawkes, as I prefer to call it. Apple bobbing.
They have been mentioned.
Mummers.
Final answer?
Yep.
The Romans.
The Romans. They invented apple bobbing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Question 16. What other name are carved pumpkins known as?
Jack-o'-lanterns.
Correct.
6. Yay.
Question 17. What were Scottish people banned from eating on Halloween until 1950?
Scots were banned from eating.
Oh, this is an option.
Okay.
Sausage rolls,
Yeah.
sandwiches, sweets, or neeps
So they were banned
until 1950.
from eating sausage rolls.
Correct.
Hey, why?
I don't know.
You don't know. This is what I mean. These questions are mad. Okay. I got 7. 7.
Question 18.
Okay, 18.
In which country did Halloween originate?
Well, that's the things we've been discussing.
Yes,
really.
it is. Do you remember?
It's kind of like Halloween as
Originated from which country?
well. The Irish say it originated from Ireland, but Pope Gregory introduced
Go
it.
go with your gut feeling.
Pope Gregory reintroduced it.
Don't overthink it.
The Hallows Eve.
In which country did Halloween originate?
All right, I'll go for Ireland.
Correct.
Yay!
Question 19. Who famously died on October the 31st, 1926?
1926.
Yep.
Famously died 1926 October.
This is a tough one.
If you can hear, there's fireworks going off. I don't know. Lots of people.
Master magician Harry Houdini.
Oh, Harry Houdini.
Although his death was initially considered a hoax.
Oh, right.
Question 20. What are other names of Halloween?
Halloween? Samhain?
Yep.
Or All Hallows Eve?
Or the Feast of the Dead?
Oh, right, okay. All right.
Question 21.
So did I get a point there or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got 9.
Yeah, okay. Question 21.
21. We're rocking now.
Maybe a tough one. Do you know music?
No. Well, I do, ish, kind of, sometimes.
Who
Well, if I
sang-
know it, I know it. And if I don't, I don't. There you go.
Who sang
Yep.
the 1962 song Monster Mash?
Oh. Monster Mash. It was a graveyard smash.
We did the mash.
We did
Did
the
the
monster
Monster
mash.
Mash.
We did the mash. It was a graveyard smash. Yes. It sounded like Boris Karloff, but I don't know.
Bobby Pickett and the Crypt Kickers.
The Crypt Kickers. In fact, the song itself does. One of the lyrics says the Crypt Kicker 5 in it. So there you go.
Okay, last 4 questions.
I need to get around 10.
Question 22.
22.
The average kid consumes how many calories on Halloween night?
How many calories on Halloween night?
Mm-hmm.
1,500.
Do you want the answer?
Yep.
7,000.
7,000 calories.
Yep.
No wonder there's an epidemic of obesity, especially at the end of October,
I found that
followed by
a
Christmas.
crazy number.
That's crazy.
That is crazy.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Question 23.
Yep.
When is Halloween thought to have originated?
When?
Mm-hmm.
From the Celtic nations.
I need a date.
Oh gosh. Before the 5th century. I don't know. I don't know where to sort of shoot at.
Anything. Give us a number. AD, BC? What are you thinking?
AD, BC? No, BC. So it's going to be, I don't know, 500 BC.
4,000 BC.
4,000. Somebody had it written down somewhere then.
Question 24.
Okay.
This one was specifically designed by me. How many Michael Myers Halloween movies are there?
12. 12. He appears in 12, surely. 12! There's 13, and he doesn't appear in Season of the Witch. But all the rest have Michael Myers in.
I mean, do you take a TV appearance as an appearance?
Well, you mean that the TV appears in Season of the Witch on the television?
Well, I get
stretching it.
I get your reasoning. You're saying 12?
Yeah.
Correct.
Hey,
I'm not going to count Season of the Witch.
Okay, 10 points.
Final question.
Final question of our Halloween special.
Final question.
Yeah, I've done really poorly.
Again, created by me.
I should have eaten more candy.
Maybe a bit tricky.
Okay.
How many of those has Jamie Lee Curtis appeared in?
Okay. 1, 2. Are you not taking the Season of the Witch into account? Because she does...
Season of the Witch is not in account.
Okay, because she does appear on the TV in that. So
Look at the wording.
2.
Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm doing. 1, 2. As Laurie Strode. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Correct.
Yeah!
Well done. That was the final question.
I got 11 points, listeners.
Coincidentally, if you want to hear our opinions on the Halloween movies, go and visit our previous podcast where we review all 13 Halloween movies. And if you want to see how those stacked up in our rankings of the Halloween movies, go and visit our rankings video of all the Halloween movies.
There's a lot to enjoy there.
Speaking of which, for our Now We Know Show flashback, our every Halloween movie ranked video has done extraordinarily well.
Way!
And we have had a comment by SwordCat1 calling us to do a Friday the 13th, Terminator and Nightmare on Elm Street ranking.
Oh, I think we could do that.
Oh, definitely.
Definitely. I look forward to that. And by saying that, it comes to the end of our Halloween special.
At the end of our Halloween celebration.
Our Season of the Witch, if you like. It's been a fantastic ride through the whole of October.
I have learnt a lot about Halloween in this episode.
I've learnt a lot about Halloween, Halloween movies, Halloween traditions, all sorts.
Werewolves, vampires.
Yeah, wow. Even cupcakes, dare I say it.
I've really enjoyed this season. It's been great.
It's been great. And we are going to wish you all a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween, every single one of you.
You just, whatever you're doing, whether it's a party, whether you're trick-or-treating, whether you're sitting down and watching a horror movie, have a spectacular, or should I say spooktacular time.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe to this channel and comment below any suggestions of topics or activities you'd like to listen to in future episodes. You can find the Now We Know Show podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music and Apple Podcasts. Check out the Zach Wylde Productions social media pages on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, or visit the Zach Wylde Productions website at www.zachwyldeproductions.com. Please get in contact, we'd love to find out how you're listening to us. So get in touch in the comments and don't forget to check out Zach Wylde Productions on Patreon to become an official ZWP patron today. That's a Shocktober. Goodbye from Zach.
And that's a killer clown goodbye from Buzz.